Hello, Packers fans, wherever you may be, and it's time for a Halloween edition of the Pack Attack Cast. I'm dressed up as Micah Parsons because he's been a nightmare for teams that the Packers have faced so far. So much so this week that for the second time in his career, Packers defensive lineman Micah Parsons has been named NFC Defensive Player of the Month. First thing that jumped out to me is that I'm kind of surprised this is the second time Micah Parsons has had this. He was been so dominant in the last month against the Bengals, the Cardinals, and the Steelers that he was made the NFC Defensive Player of the Month. Fifth year pass rusher took home the honors after tallying 9 tackles, 6 quarterback hits, and 4 sacks in the 3 Packers victories. But anybody who's watched the Packers knows that that's just a small sample of the true impact that he has in each and every game, because every opponent has to focus on Micah Parsons and stopping Micah Parsons, which makes it easier for the rest of the defense to have a great game. You saw that on Sunday night in particular, where commentators constantly were saying it looks like Aaron Rodgers is focused on Micah Parsons instead of the play that he's trying to get off, which is exactly how impactful he is. So we're getting to the tail end of the week, and what we're going to do is really focus in on the game against the Panthers this week. And I'm really hoping that the Packers are focusing on this game as well, because it has the potential for being a trap game, because they could be looking ahead at the Eagles a week from Monday. But we need to focus on getting a win against the Carolina Panthers. It is a NFC opponent, which really is a critical factor for tiebreakers. And more importantly, we want a win, not a loss, and not a tie against the Panthers. I'm really hoping the Packers will have their opportunity to have their first full all 4 phases of the game throughout the 4 quarters, and we haven't really seen that since they played the Commanders in week 2. So if we could see a 4-quarter output from the Packers in all phases of the game against the Panthers, and maybe a 2-touchdown win, that would be a real good indicator that the Packers are building up momentum before that game against the Eagles. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the injury report that just came out for Thursday. We're posting this on Thursday night. So let's take a look at this injury report. Let's go ahead and share my screen here. Here's our injury report. From Packers.com, brought to you by Amplify Health. Always want to give the Packers sponsors all the plugs we can get, because it's literally our team if you're a shareholder like I am. And we want to get all that money into the Green Bay Packers so they can do so much good for the Packers, not only the team, but the Green Bay Packer community. So let's look at this injury report, starting with the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Banks, limited participation due to a shin. I think he will continue to play as he played last week. They're just giving him limited reps in practice so he can continue to get to 100% with his health. Josh Jacobs, limited participation on Wednesday and Thursday. Again, just trying to get him over that calf injury. I do think Josh Jacobs will be off of a snap count this week, and I think they will really try to get him closer to 40 to 45 carries in this game so they can build him up to the full capacity that we want to see against the Eagles in 2 weeks. Very important here, Brandon McManus, for the first time, was a full participant in practice today. Hopefully that will get him back to 100%, and it'll be interesting to see if the Packers continue to carry a second kicker if Brandon McManus continues to be a full participant. There's been a lot of people saying that we should simply trade away one of our kickers right now since we have two valuable kickers. And most of the NFL is lucky if they have one kicker on their roster. But I don't think that's going to be something that is dealt with during the trade deadline. Nick Neiman is out with a pectoral injury. I don't expect him to play anytime soon. Zach Tom, limited participation with a back injury. Again, veteran rest, trying to get him fully healthy. Lucas Van Ness did not participate this yesterday or today. If he doesn't participate by Friday, he has no chance of playing this week. So I think, again, they're going to focus on getting Lucas Van Ness ready for the game against the Eagles, because if they can get him available at least for those cheetah packages where they have a end playing as a defensive lineman, then I really think that's going to help them against the Eagles. Quay Walker did not participate. So this is something we're going to have to watch very carefully here. He practiced on Wednesday, but he did not participate on Thursday. So this is something we're going to have to watch very carefully, because the Packers are a little thin at linebacker right now. And if Quay Walker is limited at the end of the week, it's more likely that they will keep him out of this game so he could be healthy against the Eagles. So we're going to have to watch that very closely. That just popped up this afternoon. Christian Watson, limited participation. We saw on Sunday night he's ready to go. This limited participation is probably just to make sure he doesn't have any flare-up in his knee from all the participation from Sunday night. So look for him to be a full participant on Friday. Then we have Donatavian Wicks, did not participate. I do not think he will be available this week. Malik Willis, ankle, limited participation today, did not, and was fine yesterday. So it looks like Malik Willis had an ankle injury in practice yesterday. Something to watch. I think Malik Willis will be fine as the backup quarterback this week. Devontae Wyatt, again, limited participation both days. Again, trying to probably give that knee some rest so he could be up to a full load against the Eagles. And looking at the Carolina Panthers, I'm just going to focus on people that could be impactful in this game. Brady Christensen, Achilles, did not participate, placed on injured reserve. This is significant because that's a chink in the offensive line that's going to enable the defensive line for the Packers to get after the quarterback this week. Andy Dalton, limited participation. I don't think he's going to start this week, so not a big issue. Jimmy Horn, full participation. Damian Lewis, limited participation. So the offensive line for the Panthers has a lot of issues right now. Cade May did not participate today. Taylor Morton, tackle, limited participation. So what we're seeing here is a lot of problems with the offensive line for the Panthers, and that is a dual benefit for the Packers. And we're going to talk about keys to the game in a few minutes, but the Panthers do one thing really well, or two things really well. They do play action and they run the ball, which sets up that play action. Those are the two things in watching a couple of games for the Panthers this morning really showed me that they do well by establishing the run and then doing play action off of the run. So if the offensive line is struggling, that's going to hurt their ability to establish the run, and it's going to hurt the ability to block in play action. So those two things are a really big deal for the Panthers this week. Bryce Young fully participated Wednesday and Thursday, so I think Bryce Young, barring a setback, will be your starter against the Packers on Sunday. So that is your injury report. Let's go ahead and switch back to full screen here. So couple interesting things there. We're going to have to watch some of those injuries, especially for the Packers, on the injury report for Friday, which I will report on Saturday. But we definitely want to watch that very closely. So keys to victory. We're not going to do a matchup analysis today. We're going to do that on Saturday. But I want to talk about some keys to victory in this game as we ramp up to Sunday. Number one for me is to establish Josh Jacobs early. They want to get his snap count out, and they want to establish the run. The Packers have not had a consistent running game since week 2. It's been very hit and miss. Well, maybe against Dallas it was above average, but they haven't gotten to the 2024 run game, which I'd really like them to add to the 2025 passing game, and we're really going to have a dominant offense. So look for them to run the ball consistently with Josh Jacobs. I think he will get 40 carries in this game, and their goal should be to get him to 70 to 80 yards minimum against the Panthers so they can establish the run and get ready for the game against the Eagles. Number 2, Jordan Love's play. Okay, Jordan Love had an MVP caliber game against the Steelers. I would like to see him continue this and get the ball to Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, and Matthew Golden and Tucker Kraft on a consistent basis. We want to see, again, the addition of the running game plus Jordan Love's efficiency from this last week. We want to see him continue to develop, get more and more comfortable, and become a dominant player on offense. I think Jordan Love, for the Packers to take the next level, has to get 2 or 3 touchdowns a game, and he has to get over 250 yards a game consistently to show that they can be a dominant passing attack. So look for them to continue to do that against a Panther secondary that is very susceptible to big plays. If you look at the tape on the Panthers, they give up a lot of big plays in the passing game, so we want to see more big plays out of Jordan Love and this passing offense on Sunday. Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary should continue to be dominant, especially against a struggling offensive line. If this happens, then I think they can make Bryce Young have a very rough day on Sunday, and we can get to a position where we can get the lead early and really force Bryce Young to try to win the game with his arm instead of letting the Panthers run the ball, which is really the strength of their offense. The secondary has to be very disciplined in this game for the Packers. As I said, the Panthers like to run the ball and make big plays in play action. So your secondary has to be very disciplined when they see a run look to keep an eye on their receivers and make sure that it isn't play action. Otherwise, they're going to give a possible big play. Special teams. I want to talk about special teams, okay? Brandon McManus has to get back on track. He struggled against the Steelers. Unfortunately, the offense was so dominant in the second half that it didn't matter. But the Packers left at least 3 points on the field due to Brandon McManus. I don't blame him for the 57-yarder because that is really pushing it range-wise. And I think the Packers made a mistake by going for that long field goal. But the 45-yarder absolutely should have been hit by Brandon McManus. In addition, when you're up against an opponent that struggles offensively like the Panthers, you want to minimize their returns and avoid big plays on special teams, because that's one way you can let a bad team get into the game. So we want to focus on special teams and kicking improving this week. Now, for the Panthers to have a chance to win in this game, I think they have to protect Bryce Young, which is going to be really hard to do against the defensive line, against the struggling offensive line for the Panthers. They have to run the ball, between Chuba Hubbard and the rest of the running backs for the Panthers, I think that's a really big part of this game. The Panthers have to keep the game close by playing good defense and establishing the run to keep the Packers off the field. If they can't do that, they have no chance of winning this game. They also have to get some turnovers. And the Packers are actually one of the best teams at avoiding turnovers in the NFL. So if they continue on that pace, it's going to be really hard for the Panthers to be competitive in this game. So that's going to wrap up this edition of the Pack Attack Cast. Just wanted to give you a quick rundown on injuries, and then we're going to talk about matchups, and we're going to take a look at the breakdown between the two teams tomorrow when we do basically our pregame show. So watch for that. That's going to be on Saturday, and we're going to go into depth with matchups to watch. We're going to take a look at the ratings of the players per PFF, and we're going to take a look at how these teams line up against each other, and we'll be doing that on Saturday's show. Then on Sunday's show, we'll have a recap of that, plus we're going to give you injury updates going up into the game. So we're going to have you fully covered for Packers versus Panthers. So hit that sub button if you haven't done that already, and we'll see you tomorrow for another edition of the Pack Attack Cast. Talk to you then.